Ever since Marvel released those 4 teasers for Avengers Doomsday, there's been a timer that's been on a live stream on the Marvel Entertainment YouTube channel. And if you do the math, it reaches 0 on the release date of Avengers Doomsday. I think it's fair to say that out of all MCU projects, Avengers Doomsday has had one of the most unorthodox marketing strategies yet. It started with a live stream about a year ago where we waited for names on the back of casting chairs to know who was actually going to be in this movie. Around the same time, some concept art was leaked that people assumed was for Secret Wars. Then, in November, there was an all too convenient AI leak of promotional photos of the characters that would be in Doomsday, just a week before they started releasing those 1-minute teaser trailers. And now, all we have is this timer that keeps on ticking every single day. What's so significant about this movie that instead of just releasing a full trailer, they do all of this little stuff to keep us hyped? Well, Avengers Doomsday might be the last time that we see the MCU universe as it is right now. Apparently, Kevin Feige said in an interview that tons of characters would be recasted after Secret Wars, and Secret Wars will most definitely be on some sort of version of Battle World. So Avengers Doomsday will probably be the last time we see the world as it is right now before it gets scrambled and mixed and then given a new look with new faces. We'll probably get a new cast for the Avengers, Fantastic Four and the X-Men will probably take front and center, and the rumored new actor for T'Challa is just waiting for the call. So what better way to say goodbye to the old world than to look back at all of the projects that it gave us, the good and the bad, and have little mini retrospectives on them. Although they probably won't be actual retrospectives because I'm not really good at those. But we can even make a tier list. I'll have a personal one in the video, and then I'll make a community one that you guys can vote on. In the comment section, I'll leave a link to a poll where you can vote on where you think each project should be ranked, and then I'll update the community tier list and show you guys in the next video. And by the time we finish, Doomsday will hopefully be right around the corner, and we can see what lasting effects Doctor Doom has on the MCU. So let's get started with the project that kicked off the most successful cinematic universe in history, Iron Man. All right, let's talk about the billionaire going to war with the Middle East. Oh wait, that's real life. Back in the 2000s, Marvel was struggling, believe it or not. They didn't have that Disney money helping them out. They were filing for bankruptcy. Bill Jemas was doing his best to keep the company afloat by not only dropping the greatest comic book series of all time, but also helping start the Ultimates universe, which eventually gave us Miles Morales. But things were still not working out. So they sold the film rights of characters to other studios just to stay afloat. Spider-Man went to Sony. The X-Men and the Fantastic Four went to Fox. The Hulk went to Universal, where his film rights still are today, which is why we haven't gotten a Hulk movie. And a bunch of others were even sold. Believe it or not, characters like Luke Cage and Ghost Rider were also gone for a while. But selling your film rights is not as profitable as making your own blockbuster. Because while Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was getting really popular and the X-Men franchise was doing really well, Marvel wasn't really reaping the benefits of that. They were looking at all these movies pop off like they just sold before a huge profit gain in the stock market. They needed something to help them stay profitable in the modern era. So the decision was made. If our most popular characters can make tons of money at the box office, maybe some of our lesser known yet still popular characters can also make money at the box office. So they took out a $525 million loan and used film rights to characters like Doctor Strange, Black Panther, and the Avengers as collateral if they couldn't pay it back. They were effectively putting it all on the line for 1, maybe 2 or 3 movies. Because think about it. If Iron Man fails, what happens to Marvel? What would they look like now? Would they even be sustainable enough to make comics? Would we still get some of the modern classics that we have today? Because think about it. There was even a time where Marvel did not want to make New Mutants because they would immediately lose their rights to that character in anything outside of the comics. I'd imagine under the same situation with characters like Black Panther, Doctor Strange, and the Avengers, they wouldn't want to make any type of comics for those guys either. Clearly, this was a huge gamble, and Iron Man needed to be a success. So why did they recruit someone with such a controversial past to be the lead character. Have you ever thought about what's so great about Iron Man? He's different from the people we see in our real lives, just like every other superhero. Superheroes in general give us the hope that people can be better and that there's still good out there. And I think that desire for that hope is why idolizing celebrities is such a big problem now. Because people are so desperate to believe that people with tons of influence are still good. Tony Stark is a billionaire, a part of the 1%, 0.1%, probably even 0.01%. He is at a level that you don't get to without being a terrible human in one way or another. Or at least, not all of your actions have been the most ethical. And, you know, especially in today's world where billionaires constantly talk about things like AI that'll take our jobs and how they have just a stranglehold over the economy, it's hard to look at these people as anything but evil. And these guys don't care about how their actions hurt us. It feels like if they aren't ever physically stopped, they'll keep doing it. And that's why when Tony goes through this journey of seeing how his weapons, the very things that made him a billionaire, have hurt innocent people, and he stops it all and vows to make it right, it's so powerful. Tony looked his demons in the eye and fought back. Something that billionaires in real life do not care to do. So what better way to portray someone who has to fight their own demons than to cast an actor to play that character who also had to fight their own demons? I think that's why Jon Favreau wanted Robert Downey Jr. Because Robert Downey Jr. knew how it felt to have to look internally and take on your demons and become a better man. He knew what it took to cope with his past actions, and he knew what type of willpower you needed to move on and change for the better. I think it's also worth mentioning how big of a gamble it was to bring on Jon Favreau for this movie. Before this, he had directed Elf and Zathura, as well as some other movies I'm not familiar with. His only connections to comic book film and media at this time was being Foggy Nelson in the Daredevil movie and an extra in Batman Forever. Apparently, he was also originally going to direct the Captain America movie, but Kevin Feige moved him to the Iron Man movie because I guess he liked his vision for Iron Man more. That's one hell of a bullseye by Marvel. But what actually happened in the movie? Well, if you don't know, where have you been the last 18 years? Damn, 18 years. I'm low-key old. TLDR, Tony Stark was a billionaire who sold weapons to the military. But after being kidnapped by the Ten Rings and shown that his weapons fell into the wrong hands, he shut down the company's weapon manufacturing and pivots towards arc reactor technology, where he creates the Iron Man suit. His business partner, Obadiah Stane, is discovered to be the one who not only sold weapons to the Ten Rings, but also staged Tony's kidnapping in hopes that he was killed so that he could move out of Tony's shadow. But after they have a big battle at the end in their own Iron Man suits, Tony comes out on top and reveals to the world that he is Iron Man. So it's pretty faithful to the origin, but there is something different. There were probably multiple reasons why Wong Chu was not used as the main villain for this movie or even mentioned. Probably because of how much of a racist caricature he was, even though Rush Hour 3 did come out a year before this, and I have my own thoughts on that movie, but I also feel that they probably used Obadiah Stane because he was a rich man in the comics who had a lot of quarrels with Stark Enterprises, and in this movie, they could use him as a mirror to what Tony could have become if he had never opened his eyes and realized how many horrors he had really caused. I think Stane was perfect because it actually gave Tony a literal version of what he would have become, and it helped him push even farther towards the good side. Another character that I really think helps shape Tony is Rhodey. I think Rhodey in this movie is good for two different things. He shows Tony that there are still people in his life that he can trust, but he also shows him that Tony can't 100% trust the government either. The government wants more weapons from Tony, but Tony does not want to risk them falling into the wrong hands. And despite the fact that Tony knows he's doing right by stopping weapons production, even Rhodey takes a second to accept that fact because he's influenced by government interests, which aren't always in the best interest of the people. I think this hit the hardest when Tony tried to get Rhodey to come check out the Iron Man suit that he was working on, but Rhodey was still pissed that Tony shut down the weapons division. On the bright side, Rhodey gave us the best scene in the movie with the stripper flight attendants dancing to Ghostface Killah. So that's great. I think it's pretty clear that one of the most charming things about this movie is the chemistry between Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow. The improvised dialogue that makes their scenes feel a lot more natural, the will they won't they trope in full effect, and simply the fact that out of anyone else in this movie, we know that these two had each other's backs more than anyone else. And I guess I never remembered this when watching this movie in the past, but when Pepper helps Tony replace his arc reactor, she says, "It's going to be okay," which I had no clue was being referenced in Avengers Endgame. It tugs at my heart just a little bit. And Yinsen. Man, Yinsen is the real MVP of the entire universe. I once watched this edit of Iron Man that had a bunch of clips from his first movie all the way up to Infinity War. And yet Yinsen was so prevalent in the edit because what Tony learned from Yinsen was vital to his character all the way to his death. Like with other characters, Tony had indirectly ruined Yinsen's life. The thing is, most of them retaliated by either becoming villains or conspiring with villains. Yinsen never did any of that. Yinsen was from a small village called Gomira. Gomira was bombed by the Ten Rings using Stark Enterprise weapons. Yinsen's family was indirectly murdered by Tony Stark, yet he never brought it up. Instead, he saves Tony Stark's life and forces Stark to reflect on his past actions. And in the end, he sacrifices himself so Tony Stark can live because he believed in Stark and had faith that Tony could do better for the world. I feel like this belief in Tony to do better that Yinsen carried to his grave is one of the strongest driving factors in the legend that Tony Stark became in the MCU. Lastly, I want to talk about the suit. Did you know that the suits in this movie were almost 100% created in real life? Of course you did. Everyone knows that. In the age of heavy CGI, seeing fantastical elements that actually look real and showing the nuts and bolts being torqued and components being connected together is so damn charming. A practical suit and components that connected together like that of a car was necessary for people to feel a lot more engaged during those scenes because we can at least act like we understand all the twists and turns that are happening right in front of us. And like, as much as I like how cool the Infinity War and Endgame suits look, Nanotech just spawning from nowhere and covering his entire body is just so unengaging. I'm sorry. Such a bold take, I know. But during the Iron Man movie, I found myself constantly trying to pick out which parts were CGI and which parts were just the practical suit because it looks that good. But considering that this was the first Iron Man movie and we needed to establish who and what Iron Man was, the practical suit made sense because it paints the suit as just a bunch of small little components being pieced together one by one, just like any type of machine in our world. So it makes it feel a lot more real. All right. It is ranking time. I'm going to try and encompass everything into this one ranking. So plot, action, visual effects, legacy, context, but it'll never be perfect and it will definitely be inconsistent throughout the series. So don't get too butthurt if your favorite project gets shafted, all right? Just call me a dumbass in the comments and then go vote on the community poll. All right, let's be adults. I'm giving Iron Man A tier. Not necessarily because it had a great plot or great action, but because it had a oh, god damn. My bad. Not necessarily because it had a great plot or great action, but because it did a great job of introducing Iron Man to the world. This movie was very simple, but it had a goal and it completed it with flying colors. And I don't even really see many flaws in this movie. I do think it was kind of a mistake to introduce the Ten Rings as an organization, and it definitely made things convoluted later, but they seemed to figure that out. But no matter what, this movie is still legendary. So yeah, that's going to be all for today. Make sure to like this video if you like what you saw here. Go vote in the community poll. Let me know where you think Iron Man should be ranked on this tier list. Sub to the channel if you're new. I make videos on comic books, movies, TV shows, mainly surrounding Marvel, a little bit of DC, a little bit of you know, whatever. Check out my gaming channel, Ace Vadi Games, in the description if you want to see just a slightly more unhinged version of me. And yeah, I thought this series would be nice as a little countdown to Doomsday since we got the timer and all. It's a good way to reflect on things before everything changes, because this part of the MCU is probably going to feel so different from the next part of the MCU that, you know, we probably won't even consider the universe that we get after Secret Wars as the MCU, even if it technically is. It just won't feel the same. But yeah, like this video if you want more, sub to the channel for tons of content like this, and as always, thank you for watching.